everyone. If you're not yet wearing your headset, I would encourage you to wear it. That will make sure that you can hear as well. It's not translation, it's actually the sound that will come through the headsets on your chairs. As we start having other panels starting as well, that will probably help you. Welcome to Change Now, Day 2. Thanks for waking up early for this. I'm delighted to be joining you as we will be talking about human, animal, and environmental health. My name is Ines Yabar, and I'm really looking forward to learning alongside you. I started my journey at 15 on plastic pollution and have since seen how that is already in our bodies and that's impacting our health. And our speakers today are stellar at explaining things in a very concise time. They already know they're going to do that in a minute. And for those who are just walking in, please feel free to get a headset as well. This session will invite us to rethink our relationship with the environment through the lens of health, and to embrace a way of living where the planet is also something that we're thinking about when we're thinking about health, where we can live in harmony with nature. Through this session, we will demonstrate the link between human health and planetary health, highlighting the dangers of pollutants, and maybe some, I didn't know even before this session, PFAS, antibiotics, pesticides, and all of them, that contaminate our ecosystems and food chains through animals, and ultimately also us. We will explore practical ways to live closer to nature, harmoniously, and to improve both personal health and ecosystem health, showcasing innovative approaches to prevent pandemics. We're going to kick off with a keynote, then have a panel, and then have a fireside chat. So for that, I'm going to invite a speaker on stage, Neil Vora. He is the Executive Director of Preventing Pandemics at the Source Coalition and served for nearly a decade with the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. From 2021 to 2025, he served as Senior Advisor for One Health at Conservation International and is now joining us on stage. So Neil, the stage is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here today. I'm going to be speaking to you about One Health, giving some introductory remarks. A lot of great panelists coming right after me. But first, I want to tell you about a turning point in my career. For nearly a decade, I worked for the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, fighting outbreaks around the world. In 2014, CDC sent me to Liberia to help fight the largest outbreak of Ebola ever. There's a reason movies are made about Ebola. If you contract it, you have a 50-50 shot at survival, and the unlucky half will die in unimaginable agony with multiple organ failure and extensive bleeding. It gets worse though. The virus sets a diabolical trap. The sicker you get, the more hands-on care you require, which means that you're more likely to pass the virus on to other people. Without adequate equipment, infection control becomes nearly impossible. And tragically, in Liberia, there wasn't much of that. This was the only Ebola care center in Bomi County, located hours from the nearest city. I was deployed there to support the government response in doing infection control and contact tracing. Staff had 2 computers for the entire county, which was an area larger than all of Paris. Some evenings, healthcare workers would run out of gloves overnight, leaving none for the morning shift to take care of Ebola patients. This right here was the regional ambulance. In the back of that pickup truck, mortally ill patients would be transported over miles of dirt road under terrible conditions. In fact, right here, you can see a mother and her infant in the back of that pickup truck after having just arrived from one county over. Both of them had Ebola. Imagine the terrors that they endured. Stifling heat, no air circulation under that plastic tarp in which they were transported, miles of dirt road, and the uncertainty of their future. The baby died the next morning. Under these circumstances, it's no surprise that healthcare workers, often working for long stretches of time without pay, were among those at greatest risk for getting Ebola. I'll never forget my conversation with a man who sacrificed everything to take care of his fellow citizens. He begged me to help him get evacuated to the United States after he got Ebola. But I did not have the power to grant him his wish, and he died praying for a miracle that would never happen. There we go. It's possible that this epidemic began with an axe. Communities in neighboring Guinea had no choice but to clear forests to make way for farms. But those forests were previously home to bats, some of which can carry viruses that can infect us. And as they lost their habitat, some of those bats moved into villages. Then in 2013, a 2-year-old boy died of Ebola, making him the first patient in an epidemic that would go on to kill 11,000 people. Some epidemiologists believe that this boy acquired Ebola from bats living in a hollow tree where he had been playing. If so, it would not be that unusual. Viruses are constantly jumping from animals to people. In my field, we call that spillover. And in fact, a majority of new infectious diseases and most, if not all, pandemics since 1918 have been caused by pathogens that jump from animals into people. And there are thousands upon thousands of other yet to be discovered viruses circulating in wildlife right now that could one day also make the leap. We continue to create conditions that make this leap more possible with each passing day. Let me explain. First, there's habitat destruction. Our extraction of resources around the world has led to the destruction of ecosystems, erasing the boundaries between animals and people, creating opportunities for spillovers. Then there are industrial farming facilities where thousands of inbred animals literally sit around in their own feces awaiting their death. These are like factory-sized petri dishes. Meanwhile, commercial wildlife trade to meet the demand for exciting foods and luxury pets is moving pathogens around the world. And in the backdrop of all of this is climate change, which is fundamentally altering transmission dynamics. Over half of known infectious diseases have already been aggravated by climate change at some point. When you do this type of work, you quickly realize that emerging infectious diseases are the great equalizer. In 2019, I deployed to the Democratic Republic of the Congo to support the government response to the second largest Ebola outbreak ever. I was shocked when I was at a local hospital one day to find healthcare workers washing and reusing masks, like you can see here, because there were not enough to go around. A few months later, the COVID-19 pandemic occurred. During that awful first wave, one of my closest friends from my medical training asked me if I had extra masks to spare because the hospital where she was working had run out. This was in New York City. It was a reminder that at the end of the day, we are all the same to viruses. Believe it or not, my goal today is not to terrify you. Rather, I'm trying to make the point that all fortunes on this planet are intertwined. As our planet's web of life unravels, there are complex and often unpredictable consequences for humanity. This is the premise behind a growing school of thought known as One Health. Indigenous and traditional cultures around the world have understood this relationship between human well-being and environmental well-being for eons. But in the West, we're only beginning to grapple with the idea. Spillover is one manifestation, but there are thousands of other examples. I'm going to give you one that shows the unintended consequences that our actions can sometimes have. In the 1990s, the patent on a common painkiller called diclofenac expired. Shortly thereafter, generic versions of this drug flooded the market, and farmers across India began feeding it to cattle to cure common ailments like injured joints and inflamed udders. Unfortunately, fate is cruel, and sometimes these cattle succumb to their ailments. Enter vultures. These scavengers make quick work of remains, cleaning up messes before they are allowed to fester. These birds can digest just about anything except for diclofenac. The drug triggers fatal kidney failure in vultures. So as the birds started eating dead cows whose tissues were saturated with diclofenac, the vultures started dying. And over the next decade, the subcontinent's vulture population plummeted from 50 million to just a couple thousand. But without vultures, cow carcasses began to pile up. And because of that piling up of cow carcasses, feral dog populations began to grow, spreading diseases like rabies. Some of those cow carcasses ended up in rivers, which you can imagine is really bad for water quality. And meanwhile, toxic chemicals used to clean up some of those cow remains also started leaching into the waterways. All of this had an impact on human health. It's estimated that because of this drug-induced nightmare and its knock-on effects for human health, there were an estimated excess of 500,000 human deaths over the next 5 years. That's One Health in action. But we don't teach these things in medical school. Future doctors are not learning about rainforest and agricultural policy. They're certainly not talking about vultures, and it shows. In 2020, the World Health Organization convened an expert panel charged with figuring out how to make COVID the last pandemic. In their 86-page report, there were 2 mentions of the word wildlife and 1 mention each of the words deforestation and climate change. This is a shame because with a One Health approach, we can prevent some pandemics before they even start. Doing so requires first and foremost that we protect what's remaining of the world's last rainforests. But I'm not going to belabor this point. We all know that it's important to protect rainforests, yet society has chosen not to do so. But let me leave you with 3 solutions available at our fingertips today that would make a massive impact. The first is addressing, the first is investing in a robust veterinary workforce. Cramped facilities have become common around the world, but these are like tinderboxes for the next pandemic. When one animal invariably falls ill, pathogens rampage throughout the brood, picking up new mutations along the way. Now, it breaks my heart to admit this, but we are not going to end industrial farming anytime soon. But until then, investments in animal health care need to keep pace, both for the sake of animals and for ourselves. The second is a complete and total ban on fur farming beginning here in the European Union. Caging wild species like raccoon dogs and foxes is a unique threat to people. Let's take mink. These are like viral sponges. They can contract viruses from people, incubate them, then pass them back to us in mutated form. In 2020, hundreds of people in Denmark became infected with mink-related coronavirus strains, prompting the killing of 17 million mink. The Danish government then responded by banning mink farming, but only temporarily. Let me be clear, there is no reason why we should be taking wild animals and putting them into small cages only to be gassed or electrocuted so that we can rip off their fur to make fashion. Doing so is a very severe threat to our health in addition to the animal abuse. It's long past time that we phase this industry out. The EU is considering doing so, and the rest of the world should follow. My third and final recommendation, crack down on the wildlife trade more broadly. In 2003, the first ever outbreak of Mpox occurred in the United States related to the importation of African rodents for the pet trade. The year before that, SARS had emerged, ultimately infecting over 8,000 people in nearly 30 countries. SARS originated in animal markets selling live wildlife. Nearly 2 decades later, those same type of live animal markets very likely triggered the COVID pandemic that upended the world order and killed millions of people. It does not make sense to sell live wild birds and mammals in the streets of Wuhan, New York, or Paris. Doing so is like conducting a dangerous genetic experiment in the heart of the world's largest population centers. We need to ban the sale of live wild birds and mammals in urban centers now. But we must also recognize that science and policy alone are not going to save us from ourselves. What we need in addition is a radical reimagination of our future. We need to build a new culture of care. And here, the example of prior nonviolent revolutions is illustrative. They show that it takes just 3.5% of the population getting involved. Exceed that threshold and toppling unjust regimes becomes virtually assured. This means that the revolution that is so urgently needed will begin with millions of ordinary people engaging in everyday acts of humility, like recognizing that we are not the masters of this planet and that we are not a species that sits above all others. This is not a radical idea. Everyone knows that all life, when we are born, we all know that all life is worthy of love. As kids, we rescue kittens and we take care of injured birds. We keep pet spiders and cry when they die. Our greatest test, the one that will decide our fate as a species, is whether we can reclaim that feeling. Thank you.
Music? Thank you, Neil. And for those who want to hear more from him, I encourage you to watch his TED Talk, How to Stop the Next Pandemic, Stop Deforestation, for more snippets of wisdom. But don't do that just yet, because we're going to go onto our panel, which includes someone who canoed from a glacier to the Mediterranean, someone working on environmental DNA, and a leading voice in a transition towards organic agriculture. You are in for another treat. Please join me in welcoming on stage Rémi Camus, an explorer, committed athlete who undertakes extreme expeditions to raise awareness about environmental issues. You can sit, whichever one you prefer. Windi, who is the founder and CEO of Resistomap, a biosecurity company providing end-to-end solutions to monitor environmental biological threats, including AMR, genes and pathogenic bacteria, and Laure Verdeau, also on stage, a food industry specialist who has supported hundreds of small and medium-sized enterprises in their development strategy, but also the most recent director of Agence Bio. Let's kick off this journey. Rémi, let me start with you. I mentioned already, you took a canoe from a glacier to the Mediterranean, covering 800 kilometers, I believe, and taking over 150 samples of water. Why did you do this, and what did you find?
In 2023, I crossed the Mediterranean Sea, and I started to work with a lab to collect samples about the PFAS. We got some information interesting, but wanted to get something more. So we decided to do our expedition on the Rhone River from the glacier all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, because we wanted to do a mapping of the PFAS. And we did 150 samples from the top to the Mediterranean Sea. And the thing which was interesting is that we found the smaller one at the top of the glacier, 150 nanogram of PFAS, which is normally free because there is no industry over there, and we found it. So that was just our beginning of the journey, and everything carried on like this all the way to the Mediterranean Sea with a lot of pollutant.
Wow, that was less than 3 minutes. Thank you, Rémi.
I know, but I want to get more things after.
You'll speak longer later.
Yes,
great. I think Windi has the same. So Rémi has explained why he does what he does. Can you give us a glimpse into your world? Specifically, what do you do with Resistomap, and how can this DNA technology give us early signals for our health and the health of our planet?
Yes, unfortunately here that another emerging pollution in the environment is antibiotic resistant, and so how we use eDNA technology or environmental DNA technology to see the signal of this bacterial pollution. Let me just an analogy. When you feel not good, you go to hospital, right? You get the laboratory test, and then the laboratories will tell that whether you have the bacterial load above the healthy level. So it means that you are sick and infected. So it's the same what we do. We basically collect water sample from rivers, lakes, wastewater, soil, even air. And then we measure in the lab to see whether the bacterial levels is above the environmental level. At Resistomap, we've been around for 7 years, so we have analyzed for more than 32,000 samples across 58 countries, so we have the baseline level. And that's why by measuring this, we can see whether there's a level of bacterial pollution in the environment above of the environmental baseline. So because, you know, if we don't see, if we don't measure, how we can solve the problem, right? Like it's the same with you. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of science behind what you both said. Laure, let me come to you. You call yourself, or when you were talking, you said you're an organic martyr. Maybe you can explain that a little bit more as well. But what can you tell us about this category of organics? What are its contributions, but also its shortcomings?
Well, for those who read the French press, I've been fired because I was a former head of Agence Bio. Agence Bio had 3 missions: financing organic sector, measuring how organic farming and food was performing, and also communicating. And I think I did that too well, because in France we like organic to be kept as a niche. But the thing is, antibiotics, for instance, is nowhere in the French debate, but it starts emerging. The first driver of organic food consumption usually is my health or planet health. But the thing is, antibiotics is the first driver of some consumers in some countries. For instance, Switzerland. Switzerland, they eat their poultry and their pig meat only from organic when they can. That's the first product they buy, because they are stressed about not being cured, because we don't have any development of new antibiotics. So my job, I think, now that I am independent, is defending what is and explaining what is organic, because consumer, you often hear that consumer, they vote with their wallet, they vote with what they buy. You cannot vote if you don't know what is behind the label. And so my job, I think, as a citizen and former professional, is to explain what is behind organic. And what is behind organic? Then you have everything summed up in that book. That is En finir avec les idées fausses, not an English version yet. I hope that the next director will do so. And also, it explains that when you raise cattle in organic methods, no antibiotics is authorized, unless, of course, if the cow gets injured and then gets fever, then we can gonna cure them, because animal welfare is key. But for instance, antibiotics is a key response to One Health globally, and nobody knows that on the organic label level.
And for those who don't speak French, that book, En finir avec les idées fausses, is to finish with like false ideas,
Yes.
right? So hopefully it will be translated, but if you want to read some French, I will definitely be trying to look for it. Let me come back to you, Rémi. Some of us don't know or didn't know what PFAS was before this panel, maybe. Why is it a major environmental and health issue? And can you tell us more about what you found in the lake?
Well, when I start in 2023 this expedition on the Mediterranean Sea, I didn't know what was the meaning of PFAS, these 4 letters. And actually you find this kind of molecular in many, many things. You can find it in clothes, you can find it in industry for the army, you can find it on the plane. It's quite really interesting. It was created in 1938 first, and then after they use it in many, many things. And we had a big thing coming up in France a couple of years ago. And it's regarding this thing that we decided to do our expedition on the Rhone River. When we started our journey, we didn't know what we're going to find on the river. I knew that we're going to find some stuff, because when you are in Lyon, you know it's a physics valley that you get like companies they are making this kind of PFAS, but we didn't know where we're going to find it. When we start on the glacier, I thought everything was free of PFAS. So we did 2 samples on the glacier, and the 2 that we made, the one 2,850 meters high, there were no single trace of PFAS, nothing. We did another one at 2,500 meters high, and we didn't find anything. But we found them on the lake at the bottom of the glacier, 150 nanogram of PFAS, which was really interesting because there were no industry around, there were nothing. So when I asked the director of the lab where could be the origin of this PFAS, and he was like, because it's the smaller one, it just like it could just be carrying in the air and end up in the lake. And I thought at the beginning it could be from the ski resort because the glacier was they could use it for a ski resort a couple of years ago. And they stopped that. So we know that it's not about that, but it's just probably coming from all the climatization that you could find in the air. So all of that end up in the river and slowly go all the way down. When you are in the Lake of Geneva, for example, Le Mans, it's one of the biggest lake in Europe and a lake coming from the glacier. And in this lake, we found a high level of this kind of pollution, the TFA, which is quite relevant because the lake needs 10 years if you just open the dam to just get rid of all the water. So because of that, you can see that in every town, slowly, the pollution is just getting higher and higher all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. And that obviously affects all the human health because all of that, it's a threat, it's a really important thing, and we need to highlight this pollution soon because people, they need to know what it is because you can't see. Like when I remember the first sample in the glacier, I filled up my sample and the water was like this, really. Trust me, it was like this. Clear, perfect, nice, and I was just like, how come in this water we can't find some pollution? And we finished the journey in the Mediterranean Sea, and the sample was the same thing, the same color, but the pollution was not the same. So it's really important that people understand that it's not because you don't see it that it won't affect you.
That's true. I come from Peru, where oftentimes I'm on beaches and I'm picking up plastic and it's very visible. And a few years ago, I was in Geneva and some young people told me, hey, we should go do a cleanup of the lake. I was like, your lake is so clean, guys.
It's not
but
that
actually,
clean.
it's not necessarily. And we still picked up things, but
course.
of course, there's stuff that's invisible.
If I could just carry on this, I remember my teacher when I was 8 years old. She said one thing to me, and I remember because we were in the classroom, and she said, the plastic need 400 years to just disappear. And I was like, 400 years? Well, it's not that long. Oh, it's fine, okay. And it took me a couple of years to understand that she was missing one thing. It takes 400 years to disappear from your eyes. But it's still here.
Yeah.
It's getting very, very small, but it's still here. And this is what we were working. And obviously, I wouldn't be able to do this adventure, this journey, without labs. Because if you just collect samples like this and it's clear, you're like, well, it's good. And then you need labs to make sure that it's completely contaminated with pollutant.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah, and you can also find stuff in your blood now if you're doing tests and stuff like that.
Unfortunately, yes.
One of the facts that I learned very young was that we eat 1 credit card of plastic a week. I was like, a credit card? Like, I'm not actually eating it, but we do have it in our bodies. So maybe talking about what's in our bodies, Laure, let me come to you. You talk specifically about pesticides and making sure that organic foods are available and giving a chance to consumers. Why do you believe so firmly in the right to organic foods?
Well, the thing is, organic production, so that everybody has in mind the key pillars, is no pesticides from synthetic chemistry. It means that you have pesticides in nature, natural substance that can help you to prevent your crop to be attacked. But synthetic, the one that is been invented with the World War I and II, is not allowed in organic food and farming. The second thing is that pesticides, they are just like your PFAS. They are odorless, invisible, so people don't worry about that. And what is very important in food and organic farming is that you don't have any herbicides. Herbicides are key because glyphosate is the first cause when you close a captation area for tap water. The first cause is glyphosate because it's massively used, and glyphosate is obviously forbidden in organic, but any herbicides, because in organic you have to work, you have to put every adventice by yourself, every weed by yourself, and also no antibiotics. So it means that every acres that is conducted in organic farming method, it's less pollution in your area. So many people tell me in France, because in France we're going backwards in organic market. We only eat 6% of our food. We only buy 6% of our food budget in organic, which puts the France at the same level of the US. And I know that French people in the room will be like, oh, but we are the country of the gastronomy. We cannot do that. Yes, we don't eat that much organic food. And the thing is, many people say, well, it's for bobo, it's for well-off people. No, it's not. It has to be accessible to everyone, geographically and economically, because every cow that is fed in organic, that is raised in organic method, must eat 100% organic food. And this organic food must come from the area. So it's local food, local organic food for food cattle. And it means that it's less importation of soya food for cattle food. So every acre that is conducted in farming, in organic farming, is a benefit. It's a public services. It has a return on investment that is huge. So when people say, "Oui, but the organic carrot is 40 cents more expensive," well, the thing is, if you want to buy the carrot, the local carrot, because it's the very tendency now to be locavore. If you want to eat an organic carrot and you tell me, well, I don't care if it's organic because I know the guy and I know that it's local, it's better to take local products instead of organic farming from away. No, it's not, because he's not your neighbor. When he's treating his field with glyphosate or anything that is forbidden in organic food farming, then you will find it 12 years later in the water, in the tap water. So it means that those who are polluting, they are never paying for the depollution. But we are paying in France for all the depollution. Every citizen in every country is paying for the depollution of tap water. So in France, there is something that is like a discrepancy between what we do as citizens and what we do as consumer. So my main message would be, yes, if you can, eat as much organic as possible, because it's the only organic, the organic label is the only one that is guaranteed by public powers. It's like a degree, a diploma, where I be defiant towards a label that are not defined, that are not controlled. Organic food is controlled every year by independent evaluation body. So every acre that is conducted in organic farming is of public interest. So I do not think that those arguments from people who say, no, but organic won't save the planet. Well, let organic give a chance, because it's only 2% of the global farming areas. And please don't be betrayed and lured by labels that are not organic and not defined. I mean, for instance, regenerative agriculture at the beginning was organic regenerative agriculture. But then it moved to only regenerative, and nobody defined it. But I don't know if you can regenerate if you don't forbid absolutely glyphosate, for instance.
I didn't know that change of definition. Very interesting. I'm learning a lot on stage. I'm sure those of you in the audience too. Let me come back to you, Windi, where we all kind of started. Rivers. I said they're polluted in my country. Rémi's seen them polluted here, and you've also seen them polluted. You've seen the tangible work on rivers in your country too. Can you tell us more about the studies that you did in Indonesia and what solutions this has led to?
Yeah, so this is like the original story, like how I built the company Resistomap. I'm originally from Indonesia, so not from Finland. And I learned my PhD on antibiotic resistance. So that's why you mentioned about the antibiotic. Yes, antibiotic used in human and animals, right? And then when antibiotic we consume, resistant bacteria will develop. And then there's release to the wastewater through in animal, through the manure, and then, move to ecosystem through this food system or through the wastewater. Everything will end up in our river, right? Because of the water. And this is one of the reasons why when I learned about the resistant bacteria, so it's when I mentioned about the bacterial pollution, one of the big example is this resistant bacteria. This is one of the global problem. Like you mentioned, if antibiotics didn't work anymore in human and animals, then nothing we can do, right, if there is a bacterial disease. So it's the silent pandemic in this case. And when I study in Finland, of course, this is great. Like I have the access to the technology. The environmental DNA technology is a bit advanced because you you collect the sample and extract the DNA from those environmental samples. So it require a bit advanced technology here. And then I want to bring those technology to my home country in Indonesia. So after my PhD, I did my postdoc in Indonesia, where we study antibiotic-resistant pollution in river. So we collect sample from spring water, where the source of the water, and then follow the river flow, where there is an impact from rural area, cattle farms. Definitely use antibiotics, unfortunately, even though in the rural regions. And then the chicken slaughterhouse, and then there's a hospital, and also the city. It's different in Europe, where the wastewater are released in the sewer system, and there is a wastewater treatment plant. But in many countries, there is no access to the sewer system. Many wastewater from the people are released directly to river, unfortunately. So we measure also in the city where those wastewater end up in the river, up to the estuary, freshwater and seawater. So I like to see the difference between freshwater river and ocean, like salt water. In the spring water, wonderful. There are bacteria, of course, bacteria are everywhere. There are bacteria, but not resistant bacteria. Not the one that clinically relevant to resist bacteria. So this is very important to remember that in our nature, there are bacteria, there are resistant bacteria, but like low level. That's, I think, the aim, right? We want to reach also with the organic. So I believe this is like the aim. But then as soon as there's the cattle farm, there are like more than 200 different resistant bacteria we found. I'm talking about like very 10, 20 cattle, not even the intensive care cattle farms. And then chicken slaughterhouse is worse. It's like more than 300 different kind of resistant bacteria found. Because chicken, literally the one that use different kind of antibiotics. Hospital, wastewater from hospital, even though there's a treatment plan, but many wastewater treatment are not designed to remove bacterial pollution. So those also end up in the river. They are not so much different. It's very focused on the one that resistant to antibiotic that we use in hospital, but the amount is just really like 10,000 times. And then in the river, like in the city, the one that wastewater from our household is like as high as swine farms, wastewater from swine farms. Can you imagine the river as a pollution, as level as a wastewater from swine farms? But you don't see those pollution, right? Because they're bacteria, like fevers, like pesticide. We don't see them. So this is why we kind of didn't realize maybe until you get infected with this resistant bacteria, you go to hospital, unfortunately no more antibiotics work for you, and we die, literally. And then we have the idea, right? Nature can heal, that's true. Like especially big river, indeed they can heal itself, but it's not enough capacity if the pollution is too big. So this is one of the reasons, even we can see in the estuary, we can still detect the resistance, even in the seawater when the high salinity. So this means that bacteria, when we pollute the environment, like the bacterial pollution as I mentioned, they can persistent even in the estuary, in the seawater. And this is why very important for me, like we need to see this pollution, right? When we can see, when we can measure, we can have a better intervention to minimize, mitigate. We cannot get rid of them, unfortunately, not yet, maybe with our knowledge, but at least we can work together to minimize the spread and the pollution of this resistant bacteria using the One Health approach. It's really needed because antibiotic used in human, in animals, everything will end up in our environment, and this is why the One Health approach is needed to tackle this antibiotic resistant issue. So when you learn about antibiotic resistance, you might think, oh, I don't use antibiotic, this is hospital problem, or if you're a farmer, it's animal problem, but it's not. It's actually our problem together as a One Health. So I like, Neil, your talk that we not the high level. We are part of the ecosystem, right? Including the bacteria in our body, in animals and the environment. The bacteria are interconnected as a One Health. So this is why I'm happy to be part of this One Health approach, and I hope that all of us now, after this session, we have a mindset that One Health approach is needed to tackle all of these cases. Yeah.
I was in a session yesterday. It was a film of children, 8 children that did a trip around Europe, and they were talking to decision makers about nature. And one of the kids was like, "Why do you say go out in nature? We are already nature. So why are we going out in it if we are already it?" And this is a child that's 8 years old. So it very much resonates with what you said now.
Maybe because we are missing the connection.
We are missing the connection.
A
Yeah,
lot.
and the child on stage who's only 13 said we should do more bloom scrolling instead of doom scrolling. So we should all be doing that after we leave this room. But we still have time for one more question. I'd love for us to be able to take away something that we can do after this. What comes next? In 1 minute or 2, actually, we have maybe 2 minutes each. We have a little bit extra time. What can you tell us on PFAS? What should happen next? What are you working
The next thing is that we need to get more sensibilization, education about this kind of molecular that we don't see. Once a month, I do some trash collection with kids nearby where I live. And I remember once, they were just picking up a big battery from a truck, and they were like, "Rémi, come, we find something really interesting." And I was like, yes, that's really interesting, because the things that are inside, the acid and all the molecular, they are gone since a long time. The only thing that just remain in the forest is probably iron and plastic. But the rest is already in the river. And this is the most important, and it's the most dangerous things that you can find. So we need to get more, to give more attention about this molecular, because we don't see it. What is the difference between these glasses or the other? We don't see it. We need the labs to help this kind of adventure or expedition, because we need to highlight this kind of pollution. And the thing we try to do in our adventure is we are in the tunnel, and at the end, we don't want just to see the darkness. We want to explain that we got light and we got solution. We got solution to get rid of the PFAS. And I was explaining one day on stage, I said, if it's not about environment and ecology that you just care about it, maybe it's about the price that will cost to depolate all this kind of thing. And they calculate it in Europe, it's 2,000 billion euro in the next 20 years. So it will cost a lot of money if we don't care about it. So we need to care right now about this kind of pollution, even if it's not visible.
Yeah, I saw you looking at the water earlier, and I was like, now should we drink that? It doesn't have PFAS in it, so maybe
I have no idea. I have no idea. But there's a lab.
Maybe they can test. But yeah, Windi, going to you. What is the thing you want everyone to take away?
Yeah, when I mentioned we need one health approach, but actually in practical it's really tricky, to be honest. You know, it is really hard, because in the end, when we work in the practice, right, everyone in silos, because this is my task, this is what I should do. So it's not that I don't care about environment, it's just, for example, a doctor, I need to cure patient, or the veterinarian, I need to cure the animal. So in the practice, it's not easy, and this is one of the reasons, or at least like at Resistomap, one way for us to put in an action, we build a platform, One Health platform, so that different silos here, like from the healthcare, from the veterinary or food producers, also the environmental health, can communicate the same language, like the same measurement, the same comparable method, the same comparable data baseline, so that we can identify whether the source is coming from human, from animals, or it is natural in the environment. And this is, at least from my action now, let's work together, like even though you work on your own silos, because your responsibility, but always like kind of additional task, how can you collaborate with the other sectors? So I think that's the most important. It's coming from ourselves first, by aware that not ignoring, it's not my task, but it's like the collaborative need to be put in ourselves again. Like in the nature, right? We need to collaborate. Yeah, thank you.
More awareness, more collaboration. And Laure, how can we live more organically?
Well, already the thing is, if you have the purchasing power, eat as much organic as you can. You don't want to die within the 10 years because of antibiotic resistance when you're in hospital. You don't want the tap water to be that expensive. There are several arguments that are for both people from the left and from the right. And I do think that it's possible to eat more organic, a little bit more organic every day, if you just adjust your food and your cooking. We eat that much meat that we can reduce a lot and substitute with lentils, peas. Give peas a chance. That would be already a first. Give organic peas a chance. That would be a key learning. And also, do think about your food. Start on learning cooking, not gastronomy. In France, we have this default of overthinking of extraordinary food. Everyday food should be a contribution. Think of who is your neighbor. If you're neighbor with an organic farmer, then it's cooler than if it's not, because when he's doing the treatment and pulverizing everything on the field, you may be stressed. Well, if it's organic, you may be less stressed. So we have to cohabitate peacefully with our neighbors, farming neighbors, also farmers. So please just vote with your wallet. Now that with this conference, you know that organic is really public guaranteed return on investment for every penny you will spend on organic food.
Thank you so much. I think we can all go and eat more peas. And thank you to all our panelists for being on stage with me. We can give them a round of applause. Thank you. Please, you can take your seats for the next segment. Yeah, bravo to you too. And I'll keep this book if you don't take it, Laure. I might read it later. Okay, it's for me. Perfect. So we've journeyed through pandemics, water streams, even blood streams, and our backyards and further away as well. I'm going to have a final discussion with none other than a winner of the Earthshot Prize 2025 for the Fix Our Climate category, who works with the most vulnerable and unaddressed communities in Bangladesh. Please welcome founder of Friendship, an international social purpose organization, and honorary president of One Sustainable Health, Runa to the stage. Welcome. Please take a seat.
I thought I'd keep my coat on. It's so cold.
It's feeling a bit cold, yeah. I didn't do well with the one shoulder, but it's okay.
I've been sitting there and wondering how you're managing.
I thought the sun would be coming in, maybe in a minute, but there we go. So, Runa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's look at the big picture first. We've heard on the panel how plastics are found in rivers, DNA technology shows that we're doing what we're doing wrong, and also the fight to keep even basic rights alive. If we look at the big picture, it could look grim, but our panelists did at the end say there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Let's talk about ecosystem restoration and what that hope can bring. Why is this important? Tell us more about what you do, how you do it, and what the impact of this work has been for the future of humanity.
Wow, that's no pressure. So let me tell you about why I started my work about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, in communities which were somehow left unaddressed. And I couldn't understand why they were left unaddressed. So people had not seen a doctor in their lives. And there were like 40,000 NGOs in Bangladesh in those days. And why were they not going to these places? And okay, so that was one. Second, when I go there, the thing which affected and impacted me most was that people did not even know that they could be cured of basic suffering. Now, it's so easy for us. We know if you have a headache, you can reach you need a paracetamol, you can reach. If you have stomach trouble, okay, you can have some more saline or do something. But these people were unaware that they could be cured. Children were dying of, I have seen a child dead from worms. Because they were barefoot, they were running around and the child died. It was impossible to take. I couldn't believe that in today's world this could happen. And I said, all right, I will do what I can. I come from a background which I didn't even know development work. I didn't even know what an NGO was. It was just responsibility. So anyhow, my ex-husband was French, and he had sailed this river barge from France to Bangladesh, which was a world record and all that. And I decided to convert this into a mobile hospital. The whole thing was not my idea. My father was there, everybody was there. They said, okay, you need a clinic, a hospital, because we needed a laboratory for even measuring what has happened to this child, you know? And the importance of labs, you spoke about labs, how important it is, I totally get it. And we started our work. Now, I soon found that it was impossible to work in a silo for actually ensuring that changes or impact happens. Curative care is compulsory. Awareness is part of just a program which is very easy to do. You talk about drinking good water, fresh water. Where is that water? How do you reach this water? Is this water pure? Is this water safe? What is the implications of this water? All right, then storms come in. Lands, forests, the land is gone, homes are gone, people are drinking whatever they can. The river pollution in the north, in the Brahmaputra, is not as bad as one would think. However, you cannot drink that water. You drink water which is already near your doorstep. The water could be kilometers away, the water which is even potable. So, decided that, all right, wells need to be dug, good water needs to be there, treatment of water. There was arsenic everywhere in the land. People were having diseases all over their hands. So you needed a certain, you needed to go into a system where you needed to reach fresh water at a certain level, which we had to do. We needed to prepare people for the oncoming cyclones. What do you do for shelter, for water, for food, so that you're not sick? And we needed to have healthcare not only in the floating ship hospitals, but also as a whole ecosystem hospital. We cannot work only with health, only with prevention, only with curative. We need to ensure that life on this planet needs to work in an ecosystem together. We started working with livestock. We started working with biodiversity, with what are the animals that they should have. Because even in animals, if you don't have, Bangladesh is a country which is 1/4 the size of France, double the population, 50% of the land is underwater. So imagine the density. In that density, what are the livestock that you can actually integrate without the livestock harming you? There are, of course, then we have a lot of visiting birds which come in, and people use those. They kill them, they eat them, because they don't have any other nourishment. How do you stop the whole system from becoming a disaster? The links between agriculture without understanding the soil health, just putting in as much of chemical fertilizers has a direct impact. You don't even have to wait years. You see the impact happening. That goes into the water, that goes into the soil, that goes into the field. The mechanism doesn't work. And I decided that I would not only work with health. I needed to work curative health for the planet, curative health for the soil, curative health for animals, and then we could work to cure human lives. And this is what we did. We transformed the organization really into an organization which works holistically. And holistically is also beyond just bringing services. It is also ensuring that every life that you touch does not provoke a wrong action, either with the government or with the neighbors, that you can live in respect of each other, and that is how you can provide for each other sustainably. And this is what we have been doing, Separation is really not biological. It is an administrative problem, financial problem. It's not a biological problem. If you are living together, these links need to be, these fragmented links needs to work together. And prevention is actually building infrastructure. Infrastructure for the future, not only for today. And so from just trying to give services of health it grew and grew and grew. Perhaps because we were integrating one element also, which was trust. People somehow got cured and stayed cured. And how did this happen? It only happened because we were ensuring animal health, we were making paravets, we were ensuring sustainability of the soil, we had soil scientists working with us, water scientists working with us, ensuring that the whole biosystem, socio-system work together. So it's not only the environment, it's the social system which needs to be integrated. And today, you know, Friendship works with direct service delivery for saving lives, for climate adaptation, because somehow I discovered these people were left untouched, unaddressed, because they were the migratory or the climate migratory communities, you know, the IDPs as we call them. And they were moving, and with them, the whole ecosystem had to move. So we created a platform for health, education, human rights, agriculture, including, of course, bit of cultural, you know, oneness together, and ensuring that this whole thing can work in a way which was mobile. Ship hospitals, you leave nobody behind. You have secondary care, tertiary care, awareness, link that. Education in an area where people were migrating. We found islands with 200,000-300,000 people on the island. Not one person could read and write. How do you get a teacher to reach? It's thousands of, you know, like tens of euros to reach. You cannot get a teacher. We started systems by which people who were just grade 4 or grade 5, who could come to the island, live there and teach. Today we have some of the best results in our high schools in the country. I mean, our pass rates are 90, 92, 98%. The national average last year was 70. Being taught through these systems which are all interlinked, and certainly also ensuring that we develop human dignity and self-respect so that they can reach out with hope, having opportunity and hope, and linking all the services together. And yes, so
you were talking there about kind of the monetary benefits as well. It's not just health benefits,
Yes.
but actually it could potentially help GDP. Laure was talking earlier of voting with our wallets. How has your work in mangroves actually helped in that aspect?
I think the work that I spoke about, it's more than GDP. I think the Gini coefficient is much more linked to the work that we do. And the Gini coefficient, the more is really the true measurement of the work that we do. Because GDP is 1%, 2% of rich people, and millions of people who are remaining below the level of poverty. And there are millions. Over 42 million people in Bangladesh are supposed to be still living below. So it's the Gini coefficient. Because a child gets cured, a child starts earning. Soil gets cured, you start not needing to go to a doctor. Your water is clean, you can reach potable water. We've got desalination water plants along the coast. So Gini coefficient is what we are trying to reach all the time, even beyond GDP. And of course, GDP, every time you're giving services and you're buying the water, this is a contribution to GDP. But for us, I would say the Gini coefficient we are reaching is far more important than just the GDP, because it is helplessness, hopelessness, corruption, which leads to subsequent instability in a country, which again doesn't help GDP at all. So for me, the measurement is always Gini coefficient for the work that we do. The mangroves is just an example, which I will detail out, because here we have health, which is huge, but the mangroves is something we started about 7-8 years ago. And it has won so many IUCN awards and this awards and that awards. It's because for us, actually, if you ask me, carbon credit had never even been in our thoughts. It was not even not even in our measurement scale, when we started the work. What was in our work is we are trying to save this country, which is only 5 meters above the sea level, helping all these people to be self-sufficient, and then suddenly we find that 1 meter of sea rise is quarter of a coastline gone, all our coastline gone, quarter of the country gone. So we need protection, and the embankments which are built are not maintained. The mangroves are cut down, though they are part of the UNESCO heritage, because it is the largest strip of mangroves in the world. And they were being cut down and used for farming, basically, the land. And how are you going to maintain, how are you ever going to be, how can you fight when a person is fighting for the food of their child against growing a tree which is going to give you some benefit in like 5 years or 10 years' time? How can you fight this? But we needed to do this because this was protection. And protection not only of the embankment, but the salinity. So you suddenly see agricultural farmers who had their farms, suddenly within a year, within a season, they cannot farm anymore because salt water has come in and totally eradicated farming. So we needed to go into mangrove protection. And mangrove protection meant, wow, first of all, replacing livelihoods. So 1 hectare, you take about 18 families to manage that hectare. You manage the 18 families to have alternative livelihoods. And then maybe 100 families approximately, in between 95 to 102 families, can take the wealth from the mangroves. It's the question of also ensuring that they understand, and we need to be with them till that wealth of the mangrove can become their own wealth. So today we find that mangroves that we have started, first with protection, which is grant financing. Then it comes to, and they are the ones, we have the nurseries, they do the plantation, they take care of the plants. Second, that they can start harvesting little things from the crabs, etc., the crabs and the fishes. Then it goes into the trees, and they suddenly realize that they are doubling or tripling the income which they had 5 years ago. And this brought an incredible change to not only those communities and hectares, but to the whole coastline belt. So people beg us to put in mangroves. But then mangroves growing with us is a lot more expensive than mangroves which are growing in the Amazons, because you don't have to fight with mankind, protection, it just grows. So there was this difficulty, and I was speaking to someone yesterday, that actually for us, the best donors or the mangrove planters or the best people that we need on this planet is someone coming to us, having a contract for 200 hectares or 1,000 hectares of land, us planting the mangroves, taking care of the mangroves, and the contract which we have done with them is torn because they have not taken it for carbon, but they have taken it, they have put in the mangroves for the life on this planet, so that the planet can breathe. Those are our best donors that we want. Those are the people we want investing, who doesn't want immediate return from carbon. The second layer are donors who understand that grants need to come in for life, and then they can harvest that grant from the income of the mangroves. But income needs to be given back because people need to protect that mangrove and not start earning. And then once that protection starts, they can earn. It's like any business. I mean, if you have businessmen here, it's like any business. You take a loan, the grant is the loan. Then you put in, it starts coming in, you invest it in your company. And then only at the third step can you go in for making money. So if you have an investor who wants to cut trees for making new trees, it does not work. It is not contributing to this health of this planet. It's not. And we learn it because the health of the planet is linked to human health. It's linked to that animal which comes in and eats up the grass because they don't have salinity all around, they can't eat. So the link is so evident. And you see this evidence not sitting in a country where, France is still populated, but you go to areas which is not populated, you only have one silo of development that you can do there. But when human, animal, environment all work together like this, day in and day out, those are the areas you have to go and see. Silos don't work. You need to work together. You need to work in that one health is health of life, of human beings, of that very germ. Why did COVID come in? I mean, because we have disrespect even for the germs. And look at what it can do to us, that little speck that we cannot see. And animals, and the environment and life. Climate change happens. We have more than 40 million refugees by 2025, by 2040. 42, yeah. 20 million, 2040, 42 million refugees. They need to survive, and to survive, for their homes, they cut 1 tree each. Every year, 42 million trees go. It's so easy. Well, not 42 million, half of that, families, etc., bigger. But you see, it's so interlinked. It's so interlinked. You see the reality daily. I see the reality daily. We had this woman coming to us from the south, from the mangroves, and they come, and she comes. She was pregnant, 3 times. Then her family wants to throw her out. Her husband's family, all miscarriages 3 times, and she doesn't understand. So she goes to our health clinic. In our health clinic, the paramedics couldn't understand because she was totally fine. Her blood pressure, everything was working. And then she refers them to our hospital. The gynae realizes that it can be nothing but just saline water, which she was drinking. So we have desalination water plants, not many, 7 or 8 of them along the coastal belt, and she gets free water. Her 4th child was born perfect, a boy born perfect. You grow, then there are a lot of people who are eating chilies. The chilies with saline doesn't work. You have miscarriages, and you have growth of people who degrowth, you stay stunted growth. So how can you get out of even understanding that you can put in one project and expect it to work? Every project is linked to the biodiversity, the environment, the human habitation, and which level in the ecosystem, so in the economical ecosystem, the people are living in. So you need to go step by step, one at a time. And the other thing that we often do is we think that poor solutions, for the poor, you can give poor solutions. The poor cannot afford poor solutions. They need solutions which works at one time, at one go, because you need them to trust. Without trust, they cannot take a next step for the future. So along with the silos of nature, biodiversity, and human lives, there is also silos of creating human beings who respect, trust each other, who believe, who get opportunity, and who believe that they are important in this life, and they can hope for having a better future. Once you arrive or you work with people to whom you can bring this hope, there is an automatic way for improving life, health, and your socioeconomic system around you.
Talking about trust, I know the tech team is trusting that we'll finish on time for the next panel that's coming.
Yeah,
so let's in 1 minute, how can we all join this One Health movement?
Okay, One Health movement is a movement of understanding that silos don't work. It is that deep, deep belief that when you touch you have an economic crisis and you do things which are not the correct way, where you're doing something by not respecting those around you, things around you, you don't pick up that little paper on the floor and you walk away. It is these little things which one needs to, I think, put in one's own spirit. There is so much of pessimism in this world, you know. If one could just... I was telling a friend yesterday who then came on stage and said, I'm going to quote you on this. One optimist who can bring in hope is equal to 100,000 pessimists who spread pessimism around. So we need to have hope on each other. We need to have hope for our planet, because by being that one, believe me, you are more powerful than the thousands and hundreds of thousands around you. And I want that to happen, because we have a very beautiful world. We have very beautiful people. And there is goodness in people, which I think we have to reach out to. And we hope that tomorrow's world, tomorrow's generation will bring this to this beautiful planet of ours.
And I don't think it's just tomorrow's, it's today's. Everyone in this room, everyone at Change Now, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. And let's keep restoring the planet to restore also our health. I invite you to stay for the next panel.